Hey, hello, welcome everyone, and I'm Pete Bickford. I'm your host because this is the ComicBase live stream, and I'm going to be talking for the next 30 to 45 minutes would be my guess. It should be a short stream today because we can all get out of here for enjoy the Labor Day holiday. But anyway, for about all things weird comic book related and so forth, especially some new things going on with ComicBase, the latest in the distributor debacle, which is the Diamond bankruptcy, some new information about Penguin Random House and Philbo Distribution, a new player on the scene, and a little bit of news about a bizarre project I'm undertaking to, God help me, try to brace up my own comic book collection of some 57,000 books, and what I'll be lifting in this over this Labor Day weekend. Anyway, so welcome everyone. Well, first, start to say hi to our moderator, Mr. Greg Hecht, out here in South Jersey. Everyone's getting. The weather out here is always a perpetual topic on the show. There's a thing that circulated around. It's the 13 seasons of Tennessee, and it starts with winter, it's like one day of spring, and so forth. But it goes through a period at the end there, which is like, the center of the sun, the core of the sun, and then fake fall. Fake fall is where we are right now. It's where we went from like 105 degrees with 100% humidity immediately down to like 70 degrees and quite pleasant. Fake fall will last for however, week two, maybe something like that. And then summer 2.0 comes in, and then there's fall for a day, and then winter, and the cycle repeats. But during the time that we have fake fall, because fake fall, as it turns out, is best fall in Tennessee, I'm going to attempt to do a big project that involves lifting lots and lots of things. I'll tell you about that at the end. But I hope you're all having pleasant weather out here. I gotta say, this has been a hot damn summer, and I hope we all have a chance to enjoy the changing of the season a little bit. So anyway, let's see here. But apparently not in Roseville, California. DA Libby says mid 90s out there. 78 degrees in Pacific Northwest. That actually sounds quite pleasant. Mike Beam from there. 83 from Brian Price out in Marietta, Oklahoma. For some reason, I thought you were out in Texas, but I guess Marietta. Okay, cool. It's like, someone mentioned yes. I finally got a damned haircut. I've been really, really busy, guys, and so I finally had to go in there and just say, just chop it all off. Anyway, we have announcements. We're getting them down at this top of the show here. Please, if this is the sort of thing that you like, don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button. It does help us. We're slowly, adding in, adding to the club of folks who are subscribers to the channel. Who knows? Someday we may even hit the monetization limit, and I'll make like an extra buck somewhere, and we'll take it from there. If we can get Dodger to show up more on camera, he was right here. I have the Dodger cam at the ready in case he shows up. But he was there up until about 5 minutes before the show, and then he realized it's like, oh, mom's downstairs, she'll be lonely. So he took off. But if I'll get us in there somehow. But anyway, do hit the like and subscribe. And if you're watching, please hit a comment on the live stream. It helps a lot. And it counts towards viewing hours and all the stuff that YouTube loves. So please do that. Don't forget also we have ComicBase message boards or at forums.comicbase.com. You can find a variety of interesting things on there, as well as there's a special topic for the live stream itself, so you can suggest topics, and also there's a link to Andre's ComicBase cover catalog. Anyway, so that is pretty much the announcement for now on that one. Department of Comics is checking in from Northeast Florida. Also, us a toasty 90 degrees down there, and yes, Dodger Cam for the hits and likes. Yeah, I'm going to exploit my dog. He's a beautiful Bernese Mountain Dog and a really good boy. But I don't know. We'll have to just get Dodger's own station. It'll be far more popular than mine, I'm sure, because he's much better looking. Anyway, okay, so things that are going on in the world. Number one, so announcements. We are going to be closed on Labor Day. Is always a perpetual question amongst the staff. It's like, so are we closed on Labor Day? Yes, we're closed on Labor Day. Everyone, please do the barbecuing, things like that. I'm going to be doing a brisket myself. So if anyone's over at Holly Hill Drive and wants to stop on by, I guess pull up a beer and enjoy some brisket. But anyway, that's what I'm going to be doing. I hope you guys have a great time on Labor Day as well, and we'll go back and hit it hard on Tuesday. But anyway, so Other big news, we finally got barcode code in for iOS. We've been waiting on that for weeks. I was predicting it was going to be about 2 weeks late based on the developer that was writing the library on the whole thing. I am going to be evaluating that one through the end of this week. Hopefully, it all is up to snuff. And if so, then we start submitting the new mobile apps into the app stores, and then we will be on our way to rolling out the new release. So that is the last thing that we were waiting on. And so hopefully we're good. If not, then we'll take it from there. But I'm very excited to be looking forward to that one. This poor little iPhone over here has been lonely because his Android friend has been able to scan barcodes at record speed for a month and a half now. And the poor iPhone has been sitting there going, like, when's it my turn? So anyway, apparently it's your turn now. So I fired up our development system, and we'll be getting this, the testing going on that momentarily as soon as we install. Apparently, Sequoia 18, 28.2, 18.2, whatever. Every time you boot up your iPad, your iMac, if you MacBook Pro, that's the thing. That's what they call those things. If it's been more than about like 3 weeks since you've used it, there's always like some ginormous system update to download. It's just a rule of the world, and so that's what's going on right now. But we should have that tested very soon, and I hope to have very good news for you guys on the way. So anyway, we'll take it for when we've got that one for sure. Other things that are going on. So this has been like, content week or two for us back at the ComicBase home base, where what we're really trying to do is we're trying to really make the process of ingesting content from publishers and distributors much more efficiently, so that we can not just get like the books that everyone's expecting, all the Marvel and DC, Dark Horse, and all those things like that, but when things have been getting tight, I have a little confession to make, is when we were getting behind on things and we had to make a decision out of every single thing in the distributor catalog. If we can't do it all in time for the update, what do we put in? Well, the answer, of course, was always the monthly comic books, and sometimes things like, trade paperback collections, especially if they're like the 15th printing and things like that, didn't always get coverage. We would always get them if they were user submitted. We always get them later, but because we don't order infinite numbers of collections and infinite numbers of omnibuses and things like that, every once in a while that stuff would get skipped over. Also, manga, it's we're pretty good, but I'll admit, when we're reviewing what we did and didn't do over the last year, and by the way, I've just now reviewed the entire year of Penguin Random House submits, where we saw misses, that was where the misses tended to be, is things like trade paperback collections, deluxe manga reprint collections, things like that. Anyway, we are really going through the process right now of making that much more efficient for us to deal with, so that we always get all that stuff in. And we have added quite a bit of stuff in just the last just a couple of updates. Let me see if I can show this on the live stream. This is, we keep a little, come back here. There we go. We keep a little scorecard of what is new in every week's update. Just for our own purposes here, we occasionally post this to our Twitter channel, and sometimes you see this in the newspaper. But just last week alone, 3,839 new items added to the database, 10,661 price and issue updates, 6,071 new pictures. So we're currently pushing 1.15 million covers in the archive edition. We're pushing 1.4 million comic books. We'll hit there at some point. About 5 million items all told in the database, but that is a big update even for us. And so expect a couple more like this as we get on top of everything that may have gotten missed from both the Penguin Random House and Lunar catalogs over the last years. We're not only indexing forward, but we're also going back in time and say, was there anything that somehow eluded us? So if there was, expect to see that. And we also should have really nice cross-referencing coming in between what was something's lunar ID number, it's Penguin Random House ID number, getting all the extra barcoding information, so forth, every little thing that we could find. And then also, and this is something you're not going to see right away. So things you will see right away is if as soon as we relaunch the next version of ComicBase, you're going to see there's some new fields that do things like showing you the height and width of items and their page counts. Those are coming up in Metropolis, which you should be seeing pretty quickly. It's like about the time that your kids are ready for their first parent-teacher conference, probably. But we're aiming for 3-4 weeks from now as shipping the new version. And we're also hoping that we have the mobile apps in as part of one big kind of big release. It's a little difficult for us because we control exactly when ComicBase goes out. We don't control exactly when the stores release our apps, because we can submit them to the various app stores. The Google's usually not a big deal, but the Apple one is really erratic as far as, do they submit it, no problem, or do they send us back, and demand weird changes for no apparent reason for weeks on end. But we hope to have that all rolling out at approximately the same time, which again, we're aiming for like about 3-4 weeks from today on that one. So anyway, so that is coming up, and let me see what else I can tell you about that one. No, I think that's about it. So we've been, like I say, spending a lot of time getting our distributor intake working out. One thing that we have been doing, as well as all that goes, is we've been talking to a new distributor in town called Filbo Distribution. Filbo, you say? What is that all about? Penguin Random House are the guys who most notably not only supply basically everything with a cartoon on it to your local Barnes and Noble, but in particular everything from Disney, Marvel, Dark Horse, and so forth. That's all running through Penguin Random House. Lunar notably has Image and DC and a lot of the other big folks. They've been doing their things. Filbo has kind of everyone else. So when the latest round of distribution wars, when it went on, and when Diamond started their process of imploding, first during COVID when they shut down and DC decided to cut bait with them, and then later on when they reopened and Marvel decided to cut bait, thus cutting out much of Diamond's entire revenue stream, which I think basically in the end led to their inevitable collapse. But the distributors have been like in a process of sort of divvying up the comics world between them. With that said, though, there are unfortunately a great number of publishers that did not immediately have a home. They weren't big enough to, like Titan or IDW or Boom or Disney or Dark Horse to demand their own distribution terms. They sometimes didn't move enough product. They might be really interesting comic books, but they didn't move enough product that any publisher was really making a beeline to carry them if they're only going to ship 500, 1,000 copies of their entire line during the course of a month. So a lot of distributors were left to either self-distribute themselves, trying to work out ways to ship directly to retailers, which is very difficult. Retailers hate the extra work. Retailers generally are incredibly overstressed in terms of what they're managing in general, and so the idea of filling out not just 2 or 3 order forms to get what they want. And remember, most comic shops don't just sell comic books; they also sell Funko Pops and toys and board games and whatever else. So, I mean, they're dealing with a lot of ordering every month from a lot of different places, a lot of different stock management. And the idea like, oh yeah, if I want to get Zenescope, I now have to go and have a separate direct order just from Zenescope and manage the shipping with them, which by the way, won't be free because there's no economies of scale at work. So it's one of those things that just really threatens to marginalize these distributors, these publishers all the way out of business, because they just, you might have only been selling, 1,000 copies, during the course of a month right now. But if you can't get listed in the same guy's catalog, then suddenly that 1,000 copies becomes like 100 copies, at which point it becomes like, well, don't quit your day job. So a fair number of publishers, including, some pretty they were heavy hitters like Zenescope, have decided, well, we're going to self-distribute, but we have to have some kind of distribution exposure. And so they teamed up with a guy named Phil Russert, who decided to open up Filbo Distribution. Phil has a background as a comics creator himself, and in the words when I talked to them today, I said, he's just tired of seeing the little guys getting pushed around. So God bless him, he decided he's going to take on the thankless job of distributing all the independent creators, again, starting out small, but probably this is where a lot of the really interesting ideas in the market are coming from. And, just because you're small doesn't mean you stay small forever. I mean, look at, the first runs of Walking Dead, look at the first runs of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. It's like these were tiny, tiny comic books, Cerebus the Aardvark, etc., when they started out, and they became massive. And, and even if they don't become massive, they still could become some of your very favorite comics. So he picked up, Zenescope decided to go with Phil, AC Comics, kind of like one of the early purveyors of American manga, is going through him. A fair number of folks. It's a decent and growing list of folks who are now being picked up on with Philbo. They've just started out their third catalog. So they've been, doing this distribution thing for all of like 2.5 months, and they're trying mightily. I mean, it's amazing how much they've managed to do in such a short period of time, and it's to the point where like they now have their information available for people to load into their systems, like through CSV files. So people like ComicBase have some shot of writing custom file converters and having editors go and look at through control panels and be able to look in and see, here's all our product offerings, and allow them to import them in, let people know what comic books are coming out, and then if we enter them in, it allows other folks to then say, okay, let's find all the comic books that are shipping next month and put together my order form for my store or my company or my pull list and so forth. And so they've entered the game in a fairly credible way. They have a catalog out there. If you want to go to philbodistribution.com, you can have a look at it. And I gotta say, it's a pretty decent looking catalog. It's a real good start for a website. I mean, I compare this one to about the first 15 years of Diamond's website, and it's looking like it's pretty much rocking. That being said, we did finally get a hold of them because we were looking at their CSV files today, and I was like, gee, there's stuff missing. And now the stuff that drives me crazy from like the Penguin Random House files of what's missing is Penguin Random does not have things like a variant code. And so, which you didn't realize as a guy importing data, how much a little thing like which variant number is this, what that means to you until it's gone. It's, it's like, and suddenly it's like, okay, so here's 15 descriptions of comics in no particular order with no particular UPC coding going on, everything. Which one are we going to call the A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J variant? Who knows? Exercise for the reader, unfortunately. Lunar actually attempts to assign these sorts of things in ways that are actually accessible to people who are loading their data in to say, okay, clearly this is meant to be the first one, so we'll call that one A. This is the second one, we'll call that one B. But yeah, anyway, Philbo, God bless him, has many things in their data that are awfully good to see. They have, genre codes. They're called BISAC codes, book industry standard something code. I forget what the A in BISAC is, but anyway, but there's a number of essentially genres and subgenres, you could say, that something belongs to. And that's great to see and everything. They have a lot of good stuff in there, but they're missing something rather, to us, rather shocking, is that they did not actually have a stock number. So there was no unique thing which said that, Zenescope fan edition, Snow White number 20, number 23, whatever Comic-Con, there's nothing that says that that's stock number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. They were hoping that just the UPC would do that. And when I talked to the folks over at Philbo today, they were unpleasantly shocked, and you might be shocked. It's not common knowledge to know that UPCs are not actually unique. They're not guaranteed unique by any standard. If you guys ever wondered about UPC codes, some reason it's a very popular topic on the show because they're actually kind of fascinating. They're like one of these things that's everywhere we look in life, but most people don't know actually what's behind them. UPC codes are it's meant to be a universal product code. That's what it stands for. But the idea is that there was a thing called the Universal Code Commission, the UCC, came up with the idea of like, okay, what we'll do is we'll assign every vendor, and for a price, of course. Originally it was you could pay a certain number of money and they would give you your code for life. We got in on that deal. These days you actually have to rent your number every year, but you could get essentially the first 6 digits or so of a UPC code. That would mean essentially that this is Marvel Comics. 59606 is Marvel Comics. I forget the one for DC, but if you look at the first 5 or 6 digits of the code, you'll see that it's all DC Comics are always going to have that as the whole thing. So human computing, I forget our code. I have to look at our own products and the whole thing to see what ours is. But once we have our number, that's our number for life, or until we spin out a sub company or something like that, and then have to buy a new access to the first 5, 6 digits. The digits after that are typically user assigned. In other words, most people will use them to mean the series. So it might be 59606 is Marvel Comics, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 might mean Captain America Winter Soldier. And then there'll be a check digit in there and so forth. And then after that, there's a supplemental area. It's the smaller digits. Typically, we use for comic book publications. There's 5 characters of supplemental. The first 3 are typically the issue number, followed by the variant code, which, God bless them, is on those. It is like you just want to pinch the world's cheeks on this one. Back when variation could be encaptured by a single digit, weren't those great days back in the day? That was sweet, huh? But yeah, typically the digit, the 4th digit of that supplemental is the variant, and the last digit would be the printing. And these things, there actually were only 9 digits you could use, because typically 0 is not one of them. If you will look at codes, unfortunately these days, first with people who have things with lots of printings, but more importantly lots and lots of variants, it becomes very clear though that after that part of the code that was assigned by the Universal Code Commission to the company, well, basically what follows is up to the company, and there's nobody to tell them what code to put there. I mean, you have conventions, but nobody's enforcing it. I mean, it just, you can put whatever code you want in the rest of the digits. And so because those codes are enforced only by like Madge in production, who, at the end of the day has to lay out the whole things and keep the spreadsheet, which tells you what codes we've used that day. And if Madge is sick that day and like Glenn is covering for her, maybe he doesn't remember that, for instance, Peter Pan the Never Wars, that he used the same UPC code for 3 different versions of the same comic book, as well as another one from the same publisher the month before, which, yes, really happened. So yeah, UPC codes, not unique. And in ComicBase, the way we handle that is if you bleep in a code and if we find more than one match for it, we actually go bleep boop, and we give you a little dialogue that says, yeah, we found more than one match for this thing, so which one is it really? And we show you pictures of each one. You can kind of select it and so forth. Anyway, all this, which is to say, the folks over at Filbo were a little disconcerted when I was like, you were saying, well, the unique code was the UPC. Yeah, UPC is not actually guaranteed to be unique. As a matter of fact, probably 1 to 2% of the comic codes that we see don't have a unique match to them. People just get lazy because there's nothing making you not be lazy. There were people over at Diamond who were forcing you that you had to have a UPC code, and someone over at Diamond might even, if they were on top of their game, get cross at you if you were using the same UPC code for 2 different things. But based on past events, no, really, we're not that tight as an industry. We're just not that good. So anyway, yeah, Steve had a question about manga, and we're going to get into that one. Yeah, so that's a deal. I did want to talk about that, about the manga. Anyway, so but yeah, so she was like, so UPCs aren't unique. So you're saying that we need to have an ID code? Well, what I'm saying is, if you had an ID code, we would be happy to add the Filbo ID code to ComicBase so that in the future people could associate unique items with your thing, and they could use it for all the things that people are using ComicBase for right now, both intaking your items from your sheets, but also being able to generate order forms out of them and do things like that. And so we kind of extended that offer to the folks over at Filbo, and it sounded like they were very much getting on top of it. Again, hats off to them just for jumping into the fray on this one, because I mean, think about what Phil Russert and company are doing over there. Is they are just out of call it comics patriotism, jumping into the field on the part which involves the most work with probably the least organized publishers with the least volume and probably the least margin involved, just to make sure that these guys get a seat at the table. So, God bless, man. It's like they're kind of doing for, independent comics what Bandcamp does for independent artists, which, by the way, if you guys see this, I have my Metropolis t-shirt on for Metropolis Records. This, if you guys do, go on Bandcamp at all, great label, worth checking out. The Chameleons are on them now. So anyway, there you are. Okay, so things that, well, I've been gassing on about this one. Things that have come up. Dodge Cam. Okay, so we'll get to the manga in just a moment. Ed Lill is joining us here. Welcome. And yes, apparently there's the deep dive on UPC barcodes of cross-reference. Thank you to our mod, Greg Hecht. Hello, everyone from Ed. And let's see, any update on the ComicBase phone app? Well, we just talked about that. So anyway, just rewind the tape about 10 minutes. You'll see all about Ed. All right, so anyway, so Phil's getting into the whole thing. We wish him luck. We will be ingesting the Philbo distribution stuff. I gotta say, when we're loading in the data from, like, say, Lunar, it's like between 1,000 and 1,200 lines every time. Of new items every month they're coming out from them. When we load in from Penguin Random House, same kind of story. Which, by the way, the numbers on this one have basically doubled during the last 3 years. So there is a way more comic and comic related material coming out than we have seen ever before. So our content guys are really doing heroic work to try to get all that stuff in there. But you might say the comic market is doing, some people say it's doing wonderfully. If you are watching ICV2, other people who are watching their local comic shop are saying it's not doing great at all. A lot of it hinges on your definition of what's a comic book. But the funny thing is, if you're going by the publisher's definition of what a comic book is, which, say, Penguin Random House, according to their definition of their comic book, which admittedly includes things like Bluey, their stuff there's a lot of it out there, and we are trying to track everything that fits the definition of comics, as well as books and graphic novels and stuff like that. So you're going to see, basically, the long and the short of it is, you're going to see a lot of stuff coming into ComicBase, and hopefully anything that looks like something you might want to collect in that field, or research or read up on everything. Hopefully we'll be doing a bigger and better job of keeping up with that as we go along and do that. Anyway, but for comparison purposes and everything, I believe the latest Philbo catalog had 105 items. When you look at their catalog, the phone book that Diamond Comics used to have, the Philbo one is a lovely catalog. It does look very good, but basically every item gets its own page, and it's like 100 pages long. So anyway, welcome, Philbo. We look forward to working with you, and as soon as you have your own Philbo stock ID codes, we will probably be adding them into ComicBase, because, well, I think it's in our best interests as an industry to encourage new blood and let that, as they say, let 1,000 flowers bloom, to have a really good quote by a really unfortunate person. So anyway, so that is that. All right, so on other notes of the distribution saga, and when I was telling this earlier, I was describing to my wife, it's like, yeah, comic distribution, famously low margin business. It's you're working very small numbers, and very difficult to make a living at the whole thing. But one way that you could actually increase your profitability on the whole thing, apparently, is what if you were to, I don't know, get a whole bunch of people to send you millions of dollars of product on consignment, sell it on them, switch ownership, and then never pay the people involved. That apparently is the strategy, according to court filings, being pursued by either, depending on who you believe, Diamond or Sparkle Pop, which is a division of Ad Populum. If you want to read the latest in this one, probably the funnest way to go on this one is to, and this is one where typically I'd be referring people over to, was it Bleeding Cool, Rich Johnson's site for news, but this one I'd say probably a more coherent writing summary of it is out on a site called graphicpolicy.com. Let me see if I can flip my screen over to that one. So that is not the screen I wanted to show you. I'm sorry. I want to go to where we are. There we are. Okay, right. That's the right computer. Okay. So according to Graphic Policy, so the latest on this one, we covered this one last week, is there was the whole question of, well, okay, Diamond sold out Diamond Comics distribution sold out. Steve Jeppy has exited the room and so forth. And there was a whole bunch of material that had been in their leased warehouse, something on the order of $3 to $5 million worth, depending on who's counting, which was being sold, in which the distributors were, the publishers in question were all saying, please don't sell that. Or if you are going to sell it, could we have the money? Because it's ours. And there was a lot of question. People were not immediately forthcoming at all about who was even doing the selling of the whole thing. One thing that is definitely clear is no one was writing checks to the publishers to say, oh yeah, here's the check for all the stuff we just sold of yours. The other thing they weren't doing is they weren't giving the material back. Which is really kind of interesting. And I can find no decent legal commentary as to why it is that they don't seem to be allowed to get access to their own consignment inventory, which, so far as I can tell, is not the property of anybody other than the publishers, because they have not been paid for it. Now, that's based on my reading of one person's agreement. It doesn't say that other people couldn't have different agreements and so forth. And again, I am not a lawyer, so I could be wrong as a matter of law. But man, I would love it if anyone who is a lawyer out here would like to comment on this whole mess. Reach out to me. I'm just going to put my name into this whole thing. If you are a expert in bankruptcy or other law on the whole thing, please reach out to pbigford at human-computing.com, because I would love to have you on the show to explain what the hell is going on with this whole thing and why it is the people whose inventory it clearly is can't even get the dang stuff back. But with that said, there have been recently, there's court filings from Diamond that saying, well, the people selling it were Sparkle Pop. It wasn't us. Don't blame us. It was the other guys. So basically, they're saying, you broke all the rules. You sold the stuff anyway. We would prefer that you had given the money to us from the sales. You're saying that you're not doing that. That you're not, so forth. Again, I'm not sure why the money isn't primarily being given, or at the very least the gross from the sales. I'm not sure why that isn't being given to the publishers. But anyway, that's a thing that's going on. That's the latest round of this whole thing. So Diamond saying that Sparkle Pop sales are in violation of the court's stay. Yes, the court had basically said, whoever's selling it, stop. But apparently the sales have been ongoing. The information was still, these listings were still available for sale on Sparkle Pop's website. Diamond said, we can help you take that stuff off your website. But apparently that has not been a thing that has been happening. So yeah, kind of a darned mess. Anyway, so if you'd like to read the whole article and the whole thing, I won't bore you to death on the whole thing. But according to the inventories, according to the filing, Sparkle Pop sold $1.35 million worth of inventory between July 8th, prior to July 8th, and an additional 31,000 between July 9th and July 18th. So yeah, the bleeding continues through this whole thing. Diamond was told the sales were stopped, but continued, according to the motion filed. The consigned goods listed on Sparkle Pop's website for sale through Diamond told them in June to remove the goods and that they'd help. But anyway, it apparently has not happened. Anyway, court filings follow. If you guys are into that sort of thing, please read them out. It is horrible. This is like disaster porn. This is like car crash for bankruptcy law. So if you like this sort of thing, please check this one out, because every time I think this thing can't get worse, it keeps getting worse. So that's the thing. Department of Comics asks, what is that McFarlane action figure behind me? That is actually a present for some friends. One of them might be watching the show, so it's part of a thing. It's part of a care package. So anyway, I'm just going to let that go for now. I'm not typically a big McFarlane action figure guy, but this one needed doing, and so anyway, that's coming. Let's see here. Department of Comics says, if you're serious, then no, Bluey's not a young Huckleberry Hound. All right. I can't comment on the origin of Bluey. My children are way too old to. I missed the Bluey phase. If you guys would like to get into the Bluey discussion, please follow it up in the chat. Absolutely. All right. So with that said, the last thing I want to get to in the show, unless you guys, I'm sorry, I do want to talk about the manga thing. So one of the things that came up was, as we're doing our big catch up on manga, And this was the subject of kind of an exasperated conversation between me, who's testing the new importing tools because I'm trying to refine. I'm keenly aware, as the guy who runs the company, that anything that is costing my people even like parts of a minute for an item in order to process it, if I can make that go away in code, then I've saved myself that part of a minute times every dang time this will ever come up from here until the end of time. And so it's really in my interest, as someone who pays the people to be doing this stuff, to make their lives as efficient as possible. As a result, what I've done when we were starting the Penguin Random House, intake, is I'm a big believer in the eat your own dog food, school of coding on the whole thing. Is like, okay, look, I'll take the Penguin Random House files for now, and I will run through them. And because I realize I'm dealing with a very idiosyncratic data format, everyone formats things differently, everyone has different writing styles, everywhere else. And anything I find myself having to hand edit into place in order to make it right, I can sit there and ask myself, well, is there some way that I could write a more general algorithm to do this? And so you wind up doing things like writing somewhat intelligent, AI-based things to try to figure out where all the paragraph breaks were that they stripped out between when they made their catalog and when they gave us the data, is one of the things that we're doing. I mean, crazy things like that. I figured out that there are certain letters that are always capitalized. You might say that title case is always what we're going to use to name our titles. Well, but there are certain things that are not capitalized. There, for instance, very small words. If you had like an or the in the middle of a long title, you don't capitalize that one, do you? And there are other things that are always capped, like JSA is always all caps JSA. It's not J, capital J, lowercase sa. Same thing with DC. Lego is all caps all the time. Apparently, I'm not sure why it's not exactly an acronym. Exactly, apparently it's from a Danish word that means play well. But anyway, but Lego is by trademark always all caps. Things I did not know until a little while ago. Other things I did not know, and I probably would have been just fine not knowing about this, is apparently there's a genre of comics called BL comics. It stands for boy love. And so when we're seeing a description that talks about in this brand new BL manga from Seven Seas, it's like, and I'm sitting there going, okay, right, let's parse through this one. Every time we see BL as its own word, it's all caps. So that's the thing. Anyway, like I say, eating your own dog food, not always pleasant, but you do definitely get a feel for what's going on the ground. Well, one of the other things that we got a feel for on the ground is that manga, God bless their little Japanese hearts, has a kind of an adorable little way of naming things. Like they won't just call something Seven Spirits or something like that. No, it'll be called something like, Seven Spirits, or how I was reincarnated as a rock creature from the alternate dimension and skilled up to level 14, defeating all comers to win the heart of the villainous. That'll actually be the name of the damn comic. Now, I'm slightly overstating that particular one, but no, there are regularly now comics titles that exceed 160 characters, and I was thinking that what we will probably do is part of, like, I want to do a trivia game sometime. Usually we do these things around Christmas time. Maybe I'll do it earlier just for Halloween. Don't know, but I'll just give you guys a prep. Is I'm virtually convinced that one of the trivia questions I'm going to have is which of these manga titles is not real, and it's going to be things like that. How I saved up 80,000 coins to secure my apartment in the afterlife. It's just absolutely psychotic subtitles that are really kind of part of the official title, and we might have been calling them just 17 spirits in the previous version, whereas their official version, it becomes very, very apparent from looking at the actual, between the covers and the publisher solicitations and everything else, that no, that small novel that accompanies the 16 Spirits is apparently actually meant to be part of the title. It's like, I am a all work made, and parenthesis, and proud of it, for blah blah blah. I can't remember any of them off the top of my head. They don't exactly trip off the tongue. It's kind of like, if you guys remember early Pink Floyd, they had an album cut called, it's like a deep track on there called, like, several species of small furry animals animals, hanging out in a cave and grooving with a pick. It was something like that. But yes, this is actually the real title of these things. So anyway, the actual title field, I believe, is capped at 255 characters. I haven't seen anything to this point which threatens to go beyond 255, but if we do, well, damn it, we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. But that's apparently a thing that could happen. All right, so let me see what else is going on here. Much more about the Huckleberry Hound question. Ketchup on manga? I don't even know. Okay. Lego also does not have a plural. People colloquially will say Legos, but according to Lego, that's not an actual word. Interesting. Okay, I'm learning so much stuff today. Thank you. And also, yes, manga also comes with 3 different types of the same type: manga, novel, and light novel, to make it more interesting. I've definitely, when we were getting into all this stuff, tripped over probably the better part of a dozen cases where we had not realized, because again, not a lot of people on the content team currently. We used to have some people who were big manga fans. Of the current content team, not really so much. So I guess we didn't know this, but the same title of I saved 80,000 coins to make blah 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 blah. That thing actually comes in both a light novel version as well as a manga version, which these days they mostly will call. There is also, they will have ones they're called novel. I don't know that I've ever seen one that has both a novel, light novel, and manga. I guess novel, I think, is meant to be just more serious. But if you can think of a case where it comes in both novel and light novel, well, then that just makes the day more special. If you see it without any kind of add-on, we've decided if it's stored in the comic book character and it doesn't say light novel and it doesn't say novel, then it's manga, or sometimes you call manhwa or whatever else, but that'll be the comic book version. Anyway, but yeah, no, we've definitely had to unscramble a few of those things in the last few weeks. So yeah, that's good times. And Greg Heck says that was from off Amagama. Okay, I believe you. It's been a long time since I was in my very, 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 very early Pink Floyd phase. Kind of for me, their catalog of stuff that can be listened to. Well, I mean, the funny thing is, their very, very old stuff with Syd Barrett is actually kind of charming and kind of like an alternate reality version of what if the Beatles had really embraced their psychedelic side. But if you actually check out their soundtrack albums, there's one called Obscured by Clouds. Actually, it's not bad at all. A couple things typically written by David Gilmour, I believe, Up the River and Cymbeline. Really decent songs. But anyway, then they got into a fair amount of stuff that honestly I just don't have a lot of use for until you get to metal. So metal, they have the song called One of These Days. So some big hammering dun, 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 bass thing, which, by the way, fun fact, I believe was either sampled or just done as a tribute on the Depeche Mode song "Clean." So if you think about that "Clean as I've Been" thing with the down to ding that down, the thing that they're running is the thing there, basically kind of stolen either literally or as a tribute from the bass thing in metal. So anyway, that's all the Pink Floyd crap I'm going to throw on you right now. But with that said, there were three other albums before metal that, it's just not my thing. But anyway, so that's the thing. Okay, so make a kind of suggestion: make a manga designation like comics, books, magazines, and newspapers. Probably not, because effectively they're just a style of comic book. There's nothing really necessarily that sets them apart. I mean, if there was, how would you separate manga from, say, just people who really like that style of things? I mean, if you looked at Sin City, if anything, is American manga. I mean, it's very very inspired by that big, highly detailed black and white format, big illustration, low use of dialogue and so forth. But I mean, that really just becomes a style. I guess I really prefer the Scott McCloud definition of comics, which they also used for the Guinness Book of World Records for what qualifies a comic book, which has to do with the integral juxtaposition of the pictures and language to tell the story. So the pictures and words aren't separate from each other, like in a storybook where one is there to talk about the other. That's the difference between like a illustrated book and a comic story. But anyway, we can get that one another day. All right, reads right to left. Yeah, again, it's like, that's more of a language thing than anything else. Because if I had a magazine that read right to left, it doesn't make it into not a magazine; it just makes it into a Japanese magazine. And then there's also things where, like, sometimes, like back in the early days, it was very much felt that manga would never sell in America unless you went, photostated all the panels, reversed the ones that if you had to, and then laid the entire book out in the other order. Eventually, it got to be, mainstream enough in America that we just kind of taught people that, yeah, no, if it came off, recently off the boat, it might have had a translation, but because they didn't feel like relaying out all the art, which again would involve flipping some of the characters. Like, if your characters across a spread talking to each other, you would literally need to reverse them out in order to make the whole thing work. But basically, we just kind of taught Americans to, well, if you like this sort of thing, get used to flipping the book over to the back. So it goes. Anyway, but difference of opinion. All right. So, all right. With all that said, let's talk about other comic book things in life and what I'm going to be doing over Labor Day. So, if you're interested in comic construction projects, this might be interesting. If it's not, then hey, have fun. Have a great Labor Day, and we're not going to hold it against you. But let me start by showing you a very, very bad illustration, which I cooked up in like a couple of minutes off of SketchUp, which you will realize very quickly I haven't used in like 10, 15 years, and I've clearly forgotten everything about how to use it. So let me go ahead, flip my monitor over to that one, and I'll give you a basic idea of what the hell I'm talking about. Because we did this one as an internal discussion on the internal Slack boards, because I was talking about the problem, and I threw it out there to all the people in just our general channel on Slack and said, well, any comments on this one? And wow, did I get a lot of comments. So my problem looks something like this. So imagine this is my comic collection. And this is not to scale. This is not everything, whatever else. But I have a garage. I keep the door of my garage open in order to equalize the climate control and things like that, and rob it of humidity and all those things, and to make it so it's bearable to work out there during both the hot months and the cold months. But anyway, on one side of my garage, I have a stack which goes to the wall, which looks a bit like this. Now, I didn't draw the whole stacking because I want to be able to point at the very badly drawn stuff over on the right here, which describes, let me see if I can make this just a little bit. Okay, I'll probably just settle for mutating the picture. There we go. All right, so and I do not know why that does that. When I try to scale it, and suddenly it just completely clocks the whole picture and makes it look like I just moved half of the item. So, well, that was great. So glad I just did this. Okay, all right. I'm not even going to hit undo anymore, because it just somehow that just makes everything worse. But anyway, so this is the idea, is that I've got stuff that looks like this in my garage. And okay, this is me being an idiot. I am going to try to select these and move them back into place, because I can't talk anymore about the darn things if I don't. Okay, so, and anyone who's very good at this sort of thing, feel free to laugh at me, which would be justified. All right, now I'm gonna let this go for now. All right, so the idea is that I have 57,000 comic books in my garage as we speak, and as you might imagine, these take up rather a large amount of space. They are incredibly heavy. I weighed them in, and they weigh something like 8 tons. If you were just to put them all on a scale, that's the kind of the ballpark measurement that you'd be using for them. Anyway, so for these, and is this it's this push pull? I don't even know what happened to my move tool. Forget it. All right, so. But what happens on these things is the wall of my house is over here. These things are laying on, right now they're just laying on the floor on some boards. And what's happening is they're in drawer boxes. Collection Drawer Box company makes things that instead of them being like this, there's actually a shell around each one of these ones, so you can pull the thing out as if it's like on a file cabinet, and not have to, if I want to get something on the bottom, I don't need to lift 4 comic boxes off the top of it. I can just pull this one out, grab the comic book I need, or file the comic book I need, push it back in. And that's all great. I've used these for decades now, and they've worked terrific for me in a number of office environments. And then I got them out to Tennessee, and they didn't work so good. What happened over time is that the comic boxes, especially the ones around the corners here, etc., the entire stack would get slightly out of joint. It would just kind of fall over on its side ever so slightly by like a degree or two, and it would put crushing pressure, especially on the bottom ones, because you think about these ones on the bottom, they've got 200 pounds sitting on top of them. And so these poor little ones on the bottom, if they're very strong when they're on axis, as soon as they get moved off axis, the shell is not strong enough to 100% support them. They slightly crush in, and when they crush in, it's impossible to pull the box out anymore without damaging it, and eventually you wear the box out, and then these things become horrible and unuseful. So I talked to, well, my first round on this was, I thought, okay, it's got to be the humidity of my poor garage down here. And so that's why I started using, first a dehumidifier running 24/7, which, in Tennessee pulls just buckets and buckets of water out of the air every day. And then later on, I decided, well, I talked to Rich over at Collection Drawer, and he said, well, it could be the humidity. I thought maybe they'd gotten banged up in the move from California, which was definitely true, because they were in pods and certainly got bounced around enough. But I went and I replaced a great many of them, and it cost me some bucks. But even then, replaced a great many of them, and then 3-4 years later, I'm starting to have the same kind of problems again. And I ran into Rich over at the Charlotte Comic-Con, and I said, well, hey, man, what's going on? Because these things were working great, and now they're not working great. What's going on? And he says, well, is your garage floor level? And I'm like, well, how level does it need to be? And the answer was pretty damn level. And that, as it turns out, is the source, according to him, of my woes. Is that I got a digital level, put it on the top of, I measured my floor, and at different points, I've got between a 0.7 degree and a 0.4 degree drop off of my floor as it goes down the door. And what happens over time is that kind of makes the entire stack wants to skew this way. I actually built caged in versions. I am gonna what am I thinking? I know this isn't gonna work, but hope springs eternal. I'm gonna stop. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm gonna stop now. Anyway, but I actually built, you can't see anymore because I managed to shift the view here somehow. But I built essentially caged versions of, which I use like bookends of 5 stacks of 4, which I assembled on the ends of these things just to keep this entire mass of comic books from collapsing outward, and more or less just like you would use a bookend for a stack of books to keep the whole thing more or less stable. But there's still just enough cant to this whole mass of comics going this way that it is still causing trouble over time. Well, with that said, if the problem is I have an unleveled garage, door, it sounded like my options were to either I could move to a new place, which had a more level garage, floor, or better yet, a nice, lovely climate-controlled house with 60 linear feet of space that's braced on incredibly structurally sound material. Originally, the comic book room was meant to be my office up here, but then we had a structural engineer look at it and said, yeah, you're not putting 8 tons on that. and it's like that little addition over the garage. Yeah, that's not happening, which was probably wise counsel. But the other thing I could do in theory is we could level up the garage floor, which would involve taking everything out of the garage, 320 boxes times 50 pounds each, putting them someplace else because you can't leave them out overnight, epoxying the garage floor, granted, it would cost whatever it costs, but the worst part is it would then take a day or two to dry and so forth, and then move everything back in. I mean, that would be great, and my house would look terrific, and I always, I'm always jealous of the people with the epoxy garage floors because they look terrific. But that does not appear to be, at the moment, a particularly viable solution to my woes. And so then the question became like, well, how do I level up either the comics or the stack? And so we threw this one out as a question to folks on the forums, and wow, did I get a lot of feedback. The winning design, I think we're going to try, and I'm going to try it on one side, because basically I have one side on the far wall of the garage that's arranged something like this. In the middle of the garage, I actually have, imagine 2 sets of these ones facing back to back like a library stack. That's the middle of my garage, and then I have some other ones closer to the entrance of my house, which are the magazines. They're not a big problem, but those 3 huge stacks of about 100 boxes each, what we're going to do is we're going to start with the ones against the far wall. We're going to pull all of those ones out, and we're going to try a plan that goes something like this. We're going to take 4x4s, and I apologize because I ruined my drawing somehow the second I zoomed in on this. But take 4x4s, lay them across beams wise on the whole thing, front, and then another 4x4 in the back over here. There's 3/4 inch plywood. It's basically 26 inches wide, is going to be planking the whole thing. And then we're going to use shims to level up each 8-foot section of this one to get them just as level can be. And then we'll also, we have casters, not casters, but metal levelers. We're going to build into the cages over here to level up the end tabs essentially, but get the entire thing just incredibly level. We'll obviously, any of the boxes that were damaged and impacted, we're going to either replace them entirely, or we're going to flip the ones from the bottom to the top and so forth, because the ones on the top are in great shape for the most part, because they haven't been like impacted by all that nonsense. Anyway, so that is the plan. We're going to start on the far end of things and see how it goes. If it works, what my probably tomorrow looks like, because tomorrow's supposed to be the first nice rainless day of fall, to be followed by several 86-degree and up days, to be followed by rain. So it's Tennessee, so you got to use the one good day of fall you've got for all it's worth. The plan is me and a helper are going to be pulling 100 boxes out, doing some light carpentry, restoring and replacing a bunch of boxes, re-leveling all the things, because if you guys have a large collection, you'll realize that certain boxes get very full because the comics keep coming in and no one keeps buying them. I'm not talking to anyone in particular, Miles Morales, but anyway, and other comic books, sell out quite well, and so the boxes are half empty. Spider-Man. Anyway, so we need to more or less take 100 boxes out, lay them out in nice sequential order, repair anything that needs repairing, level the contents out so you've got yay much empty space in each one of them, relabel all the boxes, and then load them all back in. And that will be a fun day. And then if that works, and if it looks like it's stable over a little bit of time, then we'll do the same thing times the middle stacks, which is another 200 comic books. Last time I did this one, we were having a garage door put in, and we thought that we could just leave the comic books where they were, and the salesman for the garage door kind of left us with that impression, and the installer for the garage door told us, oh hell no, you need to clear them all the way back till about the 2/3 way of the room, or I can't get in here and do my thing. And so me and my wife, over the course of about 3 hours, moved a couple 300 comic boxes out, and I have never burned more calories, according to my Fitbit, than I ever have on that day, because it's like solid. If you imagine just doing like 50-pound deadlifts all day long, that's kind of what it was. It's not a lot of weight in each particular one, but my God, are there a lot of reps. And I think I pulled north of 6,000 calories that day. So anyway, I hope that by Friday I am a little bit achy and probably either really jacked, but hopefully I've solved my comic storage problem along 1/3 of the problem. If I have, then I'll let you know how it all worked out, and if I didn't, then we'll make amendments to the design. Other versions of the design involve everything from metal bar I-beam construction with industrial levels on the whole thing, or equipment storage racks, which again sounds terrific, but to some people thought, well, no, just lay 2x4s across the floor. You're overthinking this, which could be right too. I don't know, but we're going to try one because it's time to do something about it. And that is what we're going to do, and that's my Labor Day. I hope your Labor Day is something more fun. The good news about that is when it's all done, hopefully I've got a nicely organized comic storage area once again, which I at some point will take a camera down and show off. And after that, I'm making brisket. So anyway, that's about it. Guys, have a terrific time. Let me see here. Ed Elias, is my garage door car to the right of your drawing? No, it's to the left, actually. I didn't even bother cleaning up the drawing to try to indicate that one, because I realized in very close order after I started this one that I am awful at SketchUp. I mean, like I really don't yeah, like I used to kind of know how to use this program, and then I went away for like 10 years and the program changed and I changed and I forgot everything. And so now I really am terrible at it. So yeah, no, it was it just I wanted to give some kind of drawing on the whole thing because I realized when I was having the discussion in our Slack that the lack of drawing was absolutely making some of the discussion completely confusing. So instead I just gave you a really bad drawing. So that's that. All right, well that's about it. Let's see here. D Craven says ComicBase TV says, what about designation for vinyl records? Yeah, we're not doing records at the moment. It is an option for the future, but I'm gonna say not this release. Let's see here. And then anything else that was really interesting? Turn my perpendicular broken perpendicular to the rest of the boxes. Well, then I need to actually open the garage door to open it, because actually everything is very tight, where I've got just enough room in my garage to scooch by the first column in order to get to the back end without opening the garage door, which, believe me, in winter I don't want to do. It's no, my garage is just big enough for this whole thing. It is definitely not big enough for a car plus all this stuff. I probably will at some point build another shed just so I can put my mower someplace else. But yeah, I need a different building at some point. But it's not just it seemed like a lot to do just to store comic books. I didn't want to blow the extra $100,000 to get a really nice building for them. So that's why I'm doing what I'm doing. All right, so that's about it. Anyway, guys, have a great holiday, and I will see you guys on the next one. Take care. Bye-bye.